We started out with one doctor, and we ended up doing tests. We ended up with 3 doctors doing tests. They did one of those CT or MRI things on her throat.
From marrying at 15 to surviving cancer while living in a $2.7 million Beverly Hills mansion, the matriarch of Alaskan Bush People has led a life filled with shocking secrets, criminal charges, and heartbreaking family drama that cameras barely captured. Behind her quiet, dutiful persona lies a complex woman who abandoned her family for decades, battled life-threatening illness, and faced explosive recent allegations involving illegal drugs. Here are 15 things you never knew about Ami Brown from Alaskan Bush People. Fact 1. Child bride at 15. When Ami Brown married Billy Brown in 1979, she was just 15 years old while he was 26, creating an 11-year age gap that would raise serious concerns by today's standards. According to a Tarrant County, Texas marriage certificate, the couple wed on June 16, 1979, when Ami was still a sophomore in high school and Billy was already an adult man who had been previously married and had children from his first relationship. The circumstances surrounding their marriage became even more troubling when details emerged about how quickly Ami's life changed after saying, "I do." Her mother had given permission for the teenage marriage under one strict condition: Ami would remain in high school and finish her education. However, shortly after the wedding, Ami abruptly dropped out of school and completely severed all contact with her family. A decision that her relatives blamed squarely on Billy's influence. When Ami's brother later confronted Billy about breaking the agreement regarding her education, Billy's response was reportedly both possessive and alarming. According to family members, Billy angrily told him, "That's none of your mother's business now. She belongs to me." This controlling language suggested that Billy viewed his teenage bride more as property than as an equal partner in marriage. The power dynamics in their relationship became apparent to viewers of Alaskan Bush People, where fans consistently described Ami as a quiet, dutiful, and subservient wife who rarely challenged her husband's decisions. Many observers began to wonder whether this submissive behavior was the result of decades of control that began when she was still a vulnerable teenager. Despite the concerning circumstances of their marriage, Ami has never publicly voiced any complaints about her relationship with Billy, or suggested that she was coerced into marriage. The couple remained together for over 40 years until Billy's death in 2021 and Alaskan Bush. People consistently portrayed their relationship as a true love story, rather than addressing the problematic age gap that started it all. Fact 2. 36-year family estrangement. After marrying Billy Brown at 15, Ami completely disappeared from her family's life and maintained zero contact with them for an astonishing 36 years, creating one of the most extreme family estrangements ever documented on reality television. This wasn't just a case of growing apart or moving away. Ami deliberately chose to erase her past and refused all attempts at reconciliation, even during the most heartbreaking circumstances imaginable. The estrangement became particularly tragic when Ami's 84-year-old mother, Earlene Branson, began suffering from Alzheimer's disease and desperately wanted to see her daughter one last time before she died. In 2016, the elderly woman even made a 3,500-mile journey from Texas to Hoona, Alaska, hoping to surprise Ami and finally reunite with the daughter she hadn't seen since the late 1970s. However, the Browns were in Hawaii during her visit, and the reunion never happened. Ami's brother, Les Branson, revealed that the family had called the Discovery Channel multiple times, leaving messages for Ami and begging her to contact them, especially after her cancer diagnosis became public. Despite knowing that their mother was dying and that this might be their last chance to reconcile, Ami never returned a single call or made any effort to reach out to her biological family. When Earlene Branson died in November 2018 at age 85, Ami reportedly showed no reaction, and made no attempt to attend the funeral or even acknowledge her mother's passing. Her brother Les told reporters, "When my mom died, we have heard nothing from her. My mother wanted to talk to her daughter. The Browns are her family now." Amy has explained her decision by revealing that she came from a family of severe alcoholics and felt she needed to eliminate certain people from her past to live a healthy life. She has also stated that she specifically keeps her physical location secret from her estranged family members because she doesn't want them to know where she is at any time. Fact 3. Criminal welfare fraud history. Long before the Brown family became famous for their Alaska Permanent Fund dividend fraud case that landed them in headlines, Amy Brown already had a documented criminal history involving welfare fraud that dated back to the 1990s. This earlier brush with the law reveals a pattern of questionable financial dealings that predated the family's reality television fame by more than 2 decades. Welfare fraud typically involves providing false information on government assistance applications, failing to report changes in income or household composition, or continuing to receive benefits after becoming ineligible. While the specific details of Amy's 1990s welfare fraud case haven't been fully disclosed to the public, court records confirm that she was indeed charged with this crime during a period when the Brown family was struggling financially in their early years of wilderness living. This criminal background becomes particularly significant when viewed alongside the family's later legal troubles that played out in the public eye. In 2014, Amy, along with Billy and 4 of their children, were indicted on 60 counts of first-degree unsworn falsification and theft related to illegally claiming Alaska Permanent Fund dividend payments while actually living outside the state. The family had collected over $21,000 in dividend money between 2010 and 2013 by lying about their residency status on official government forms. What makes Amy's earlier welfare fraud conviction especially notable is that it shows this wasn't simply a one-time mistake or misunderstanding about residency requirements. Instead, it suggests a longer history of being willing to bend or break rules when it came to government assistance programs, spanning from the 1990s through the 2010s. The welfare fraud charge also adds another layer to understanding the Brown family's complex relationship with government benefits and their claims of living completely off the grid and independent from society. While they portrayed themselves as self-sufficient wilderness survivors who rejected modern conveniences and government assistance, the reality appears to be that they were quite willing to accept government money when it was available, sometimes through questionable means. Both criminal cases highlight a significant gap between the family's public image as rugged individualists and their private willingness to accept taxpayer-funded benefits. Fact 4. Near death. Weight of 77 pounds. During her grueling battle with stage 3 lung cancer in 2017, Amy Brown's weight dropped to a shocking 77 pounds, bringing her dangerously close to death from starvation and putting her family through an agonizing period of watching her waste away before their eyes. To put this in perspective, 77 pounds is considered severely underweight even for a small child, let alone a grown woman, who had previously weighed around 128 pounds when she was healthy. The dramatic weight loss was a direct result of the intense radiation and chemotherapy treatments that Amy underwent at UCLA Medical Center, which made eating almost impossible due to excruciating pain throughout her mouth, throat, and digestive system. Billy Brown described the heartbreaking reality of watching his wife struggle, telling reporters that she was just a few pounds away from dying, and that the radiation treatment hurt so badly that Amy couldn't even take a sip of water without experiencing severe pain. Amy herself later revealed the devastating progression of her eating difficulties, explaining how she went from enjoying comfort foods like ice cream and mashed potatoes to being completely unable to consume anything at all. The pain was so intense that she would bend over and cry like a baby 4 or 5 times a day, though she tried to hide her suffering from her family members who were already terrified of losing her. Billy had to carry Ami around constantly during this period because she was too weak to walk on her own, and her heart was struggling to function properly due to the extreme malnutrition. The family was told that if her weight didn't increase above 100 pounds, she wouldn't be strong enough to continue with additional chemotherapy treatments that might save her life. The 77-pound weight became a critical turning point in Ami's treatment plan, as doctors had to focus on getting her to gain weight before they could proceed with any further cancer-fighting measures. Fortunately, after her cancer went into remission, Ami was able to slowly rebuild her strength and eventually reached 104 pounds, though she remained much smaller than her pre-cancer weight. Fact 5. Secret Beverly Hills Mansion Life. While Alaskan Bush People viewers watched the Brown family struggle to survive in rustic cabins and makeshift shelters, Ami and her family were actually living in complete luxury in a $2.7 million Beverly Hills mansion during her cancer treatment in 2017. This stunning contradiction between their on-screen wilderness image and their off-screen reality created one of the most shocking revelations about the family's true lifestyle. The lavish property, located in the exclusive Beverly Glen area of Beverly Hills, featured 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a master suite with a jacuzzi, an in-ground swimming pool, and a total of 14 rooms spread across 3,382 square feet. The mansion had been built in 1976 and was recently remodeled with modern amenities, including hardwood floors, marble countertops, and a gorgeous kitchen with wooden cabinets that could easily accommodate cooking for the entire Brown clan. What made this living situation even more ironic was that the family had spent years on television criticizing modern society and claiming they preferred their simple, off-the-grid lifestyle to the materialism and comfort of mainstream American life. Yet, when faced with a serious medical situation, they immediately embraced the most luxurious accommodations that money could buy. Complete with an outdoor pool where they could lounge under the California Sunday. The Browns didn't attempt to hide their Beverly Hills lifestyle from fans, as their youngest daughter, Rain Brown, posted several photos of the mansion on her social media accounts, showing off the opulent surroundings that were completely at odds with their wilderness persona. The family chose this particular location because it was just minutes away from UCLA Medical Center, where Ami was receiving her cancer treatments, making it convenient for her medical appointments. The mansion revelation caused many fans to question whether the family's entire wilderness lifestyle was fabricated for television, especially since they seemed so comfortable adapting to luxury living when it suited their needs. Some family members had also been spotted staying at expensive hotels, including a $4,500 per night hotel suite, further undermining their claims of preferring simple living. Fact 6. Family boat navigation expert. Despite her typically quiet and reserved personality on Alaskan Bush People, Ami Brown is actually the family's most skilled boat navigator and has developed an expertise in advanced maritime navigation techniques that has proven crucial for their survival in Alaska's treacherous waters. While viewers might expect one of her more outspoken sons to take charge of navigating their vessel, it's actually Ami who studies charts, plots, courses, and guides the family through some of the most dangerous waterways in North America. Ami has dedicated significant time to learning professional navigation methods, studying everything from reading nautical charts and understanding tidal patterns to using compass bearings and identifying safe passages through rocky coastlines. Her navigation skills became especially important when the family traveled aboard their boat called the Integrity, a vessel that has been central to many of their Alaskan adventures and served as both transportation and temporary home during various episodes of the show. The complexity of Alaskan waters cannot be overstated, as the region is filled with hidden rocks, constantly changing depths, unpredictable weather patterns, and narrow channels that can trap or destroy boats if navigated incorrectly. One particularly dangerous area that Ami has successfully navigated is the Wrangell Narrows, which the show's narrator described as a notoriously dangerous passage filled with changing depths, underwater rock formations, and sunken boats. During one memorable episode, the family encountered a severe storm while traveling to Mosman Island, the location where Billy and Ami first began their Alaskan bush life decades earlier. As dark clouds gathered and heavy rain began pelting their boat with crashing waves, it was Ami's navigation expertise that helped guide them safely through the dangerous conditions, when visibility was severely limited and the risk of running aground was extremely high. Her role as the family navigator also highlights a surprising aspect of traditional gender roles within the Brown household, where despite the family's often old-fashioned approach to many aspects of life, they recognized and relied upon Ami's superior skills in this critical area. Her navigation abilities have literally been a matter of life and death for the family, as getting lost or shipwrecked in remote Alaskan waters could easily result in tragedy for the entire Brown clan. Fact 7. Created unique family dialect. Due to their extreme isolation in the Alaskan wilderness, where the Brown family would go 6 to 9 months without any contact with the outside world, Ami and Billy developed their own distinctive language and dialect with their children that became a fascinating linguistic phenomenon for viewers and researchers alike. This wasn't simply a matter of developing a few family nicknames or inside jokes, but rather the creation of an entirely unique way of speaking that blended unusual pronunciations, made-up words, and colorful expressions that set them apart from standard American English. The Brown family's dialect, often referred to as Bush dialect by fans and linguists, emerged naturally from their complete isolation from mainstream society and their need to create their own cultural identity, separate from the modern world they had rejected. The family developed idiosyncratic phrases, unusual pronunciations of common words, and their own terminology for describing wilderness activities and concepts that didn't exist in regular conversation. What made this linguistic development particularly interesting was how it combined elements from Billy's Texas background with Ami's Southern influences, then evolved further through their children's limited exposure to diverse speech patterns during their formative years in remote Alaska. The result was a hybrid accent and vocabulary that sounded distinctly different from any regional American dialect, creating something entirely unique to the Brown family alone. The authenticity of their dialect became a subject of debate among viewers, with some questioning whether the family's distinctive way of speaking was genuine or manufactured for television drama. However, linguists who studied the family noted that their speech patterns were consistent with what happens when small groups become isolated for extended periods. As language naturally evolves and changes when there's limited outside influence to maintain standard forms of communication. The family's unique dialect also extended beyond just their accents and vocabulary to include their own family-specific terminology for referring to each other and describing their wilderness lifestyle. This linguistic isolation contributed to the sense that the Browns had truly created their own separate world, complete with its own culture and communication system that reinforced their identity as the self-proclaimed wolf pack, living apart from civilization. Fact 8. Escaped alcoholic family background. Ami Brown's decision to completely cut ties with her biological family wasn't just about teenage rebellion or loyalty to her new husband, but rather a deliberate escape from a severely dysfunctional household dominated by alcoholism that had torn her family apart during her childhood. Growing up in Texas, Ami witnessed firsthand how alcohol addiction destroyed relationships and created an unstable, potentially dangerous environment that she was determined to leave behind forever. In Candid Moments on Alaskan Bush People, Ami has opened up about the traumatic reality of her upbringing, explaining that she comes from a family of alcoholism and that her father was an alcoholic, whose drinking problems tore our family apart. These childhood experiences of watching alcoholism devastate her. Household became formative lessons that shaped her entire approach to family life and her fierce determination to protect her own children from similar influences. The severity of her family's drinking problems became so deeply ingrained in Ami's psyche that she made the extraordinary decision to keep her physical location completely secret from her estranged relatives, even decades after she had established her own stable family life with Billy and their 7 children. As she explained in interviews, "That is the reason why I don't let them know where physically I am," because she feared that reconnecting with her alcoholic family members could somehow bring their destructive influence back into her carefully constructed world. This fear of her family's alcoholic tendencies also helps explain why Billy and Ami's household maintained such strict rules about alcohol consumption, with the family rarely, if ever, drinking on camera. Despite living in a culture where alcohol might be used to cope with harsh wilderness conditions, Ami's traumatic childhood experiences taught her that alcohol could quickly spiral out of control and destroy families, making her hypervigilant about protecting her own children from any exposure to drinking problems. Her commitment to avoiding her biological family's influence was so strong that she was willing to sacrifice any possibility of reconciliation, even when her elderly mother was dying, and desperately wanted to see her daughter one last time. For Ami, the potential risk of being drawn back into her family's alcoholic dysfunction outweighed even the most emotional family obligations. Fact 9. Recent drug use allegations. In a shocking turn of events that stunned Alaskan Bush People fans, Ami Brown's own son, Noah, contacted police in April 2025 to request a welfare check on his mother, making explosive allegations that she was taking methamphetamine with her daughter Rain and living in deteriorating conditions that had him deeply concerned for her safety. These disturbing claims came to light through court documents filed during Rain Brown's arrest on burglary and criminal trespassing charges, revealing a family crisis that was far more serious than anything viewers had seen on television. According to police reports, Noah told officers that he believed his mother, Ami, was being given methamphetamine by his sister, Rain, and her husband, Josiah Lorton, and that Ami's health was rapidly declining as a result of this alleged drug use combined with excessive drinking. Noah described his mother as deteriorating and claimed that Rain was preventing Ami from taking her prescribed medications because Rain believed that anyone trying to force her to take medication was the devil. The welfare check request became even more alarming when Noah revealed additional details about the living situation, including his claim that Rain had taken a pistol from him and that her husband Josiah was known to always be armed. Despite allegedly not being legally permitted to own firearms, Noah also told police that both his mother and sister referred to Josiah as the next Messiah, which he found extremely worrying given the circumstances. When police attempted to conduct the welfare check on April 7, 2025, they were unable to locate Ami, but discovered that she might be staying with Rain and Josiah, who were arrested just days later. On charges related to allegedly stealing over $170,000 in cash, guns, wine, and gold coins from a family member. The timing of these events created a disturbing picture of a family in serious crisis, with Noah feeling so desperate about his mother's condition that he was willing to involve law enforcement. Despite these serious allegations, Ami later appeared on social media, posting photos with Rain and describing their time together as a wonderful day on the mountain with my beautiful daughter, without addressing any of the drug use claims or the circumstances that led to the police welfare check. Fact 10. Survived 3% cancer odds. When Ami Brown was diagnosed with stage 3 non-small cell lung cancer in April 2017, doctors at UCLA Medical Center delivered devastating news that gave her only a 3% chance of survival, making her eventual complete recovery. one of the most remarkable medical comebacks in reality television history. The cancer had already spread throughout her chest and back by the time it was discovered, putting her in an extremely advanced stage where most patients don't survive more than a few months, even with aggressive treatment. The grim prognosis meant that Ami was facing almost certain death, with doctors being brutally honest about her slim chances of beating such an aggressive form of cancer that had already metastasized to multiple areas of her body. Stage 3 lung cancer typically has a 5-year survival rate of only 15 to 25% under the best circumstances, so Ami's 3% odds reflected just how dire her situation had become by the time the disease was properly diagnosed. What made her recovery even more extraordinary was the grueling treatment regimen she had to endure, which included 4 months of intensive chemotherapy combined with daily radiation treatments that left her barely able to function. The treatments were so harsh that they nearly killed her before the cancer could, causing her to lose over 50 pounds and bringing her to the brink of death from the cure itself, rather than the disease. When Ami and her family went to UCLA Medical Center in December 2017 to receive the results of her latest scans, they were prepared for the worst possible news and had already developed a backup treatment plan, assuming the cancer had continued to spread. Billy later described the family as being solemn during that doctor's visit because none of them expected to hear anything positive after months of watching Ami suffer through treatments that seemed to be destroying her body. The moment when doctors announced that all signs of cancer had completely disappeared from Ami's body was so shocking that Billy said, "It was hard for it to sink in for all of us, and that they had to pick us up off the floor." Her oncologist, Dr. Deborah Wong, confirmed that Ami's disease had responded well to the treatment, and that she was officially in remission, defying the 3% survival odds that had seemed like a death sentence just months earlier. Fact 11. Homeschooled 7 children. Throughout their decades of wilderness living, Ami Brown took on the enormous responsibility of serving as the sole teacher for all 7 of her children, providing their complete education entirely off-grid without any formal schooling, standardized curriculum, or outside educational support. This meant that for over 20 years, Ami was simultaneously a mother, wilderness survivor, and full-time educator who had to teach everything from basic reading and math to advanced subjects like science and history while living in remote Alaskan locations with limited resources. The scope of Ami's educational duties was staggering when you consider that she was teaching children ranging from toddlers to teenagers at the same time, creating lesson plans and finding educational materials, while also managing all the daily survival tasks required for wilderness living. She had to teach Matthew, Joshua, Bear, Gabe, Noah, Snowbird, and Rain everything they would normally learn in traditional schools, but without access to libraries, computers, laboratory equipment, or any of the tools that most homeschooling families take for granted. What made Ami's educational approach even more challenging was that the family often went 6 to 9 months without any contact with the outside world, meaning she couldn't rely on correspondence courses, online programs, or regular trips to town for educational supplies. Instead, she had to be creative and resourceful, using the wilderness itself as a classroom, and incorporating practical survival skills into academic lessons that taught her children both book knowledge and real-world capabilities. The results of Ami's homeschooling efforts became apparent to viewers who watched the Brown children speak on camera, as they demonstrated strong vocabularies and communication skills despite their unconventional education. Her children learned to read, write, and express themselves clearly, while also developing unique perspectives on life that came from their isolated upbringing and Ami's particular teaching style. The educational burden on Ami was made even more intense by the fact that she was also responsible for all the traditional mothering duties, like cooking, cleaning, medical care, and emotional support, while simultaneously trying to ensure that her children received a well-rounded education that would prepare them for adult life, whether they chose to continue living in the wilderness or eventually integrate into mainstream society. Fact 12. Lost mother without reconciling. In one of the most heartbreaking chapters of Ami Brown's life, her estranged mother, Earlene Branson, died in November 2018 at age 85, bringing their 39-year separation to a permanent end without any reconciliation. Despite desperate attempts by the elderly woman to reconnect with her daughter during Ami's cancer battle. This tragic outcome became even more poignant because Earlene had been suffering from Alzheimer's disease in her final years and had made it her dying wish to see Ami one last time before she passed away. The timing of Earlene's death was particularly devastating because it occurred during a period when Ami's own mortality had been called into question due to her lung cancer diagnosis, creating a window of opportunity where both women might have been motivated to heal their decades-old rift. Earlene had been following news of Ami's cancer through media reports and had even called the Discovery Channel multiple times, leaving messages and begging them to help her contact her daughter during this critical time when both their lives were hanging in the balance. The elderly mother's attempts to reach out became increasingly urgent as her Alzheimer's disease progressed, and she realized that time was running out for any possibility of reconciliation with the daughter she hadn't spoken to since Ami was a teenager. Earlene's desperation to see Ami became so intense that she had even made the grueling 3,500-mile journey from Texas to Alaska in 2016, hoping to surprise her daughter, and finally bridge the gap that had separated them for nearly 4 decades. When Earlene died in 2018, Ami showed no public reaction to the news and made no attempt to attend her mother's funeral or even acknowledge her passing, maintaining the same cold distance that had characterized their relationship since Ami's marriage to Billy. Ami's brother Les revealed the family's heartbreak when he told reporters, "When my mom died, we have heard nothing from her. My mother wanted to talk to her daughter." The finality of Earlene's death meant that any possibility of healing the mother-daughter relationship was now gone forever, leaving behind only regret and unanswered questions about what might have been possible if Ami had been willing to set aside her grievances and reconnect with her dying mother during those final precious months. Fact 13. Multiple recent hospitalizations. Even after beating her lung cancer and going into remission, Ami Brown has faced a series of serious health crises that have required multiple emergency hospitalizations for pneumonia and severe breathing difficulties, including a frightening incident in February 2025 when she had to be placed in a medically induced coma and airlifted to a major hospital. These ongoing respiratory problems have created a pattern of medical emergencies that keep her family in constant fear of losing their matriarch to complications that may be related to the long-term effects of her previous cancer. Treatments. The most recent and alarming hospitalization occurred when Ami began experiencing severe chest pains and breathing problems that quickly escalated into a life-threatening situation, requiring emergency medical intervention. Her daughter, Snowbird, explained to worried fans that Ami went to the emergency room late last night, and that after doctors performed tests, they actually medically evacuated her to the next big hospital. Because her condition was too serious for the local facility to handle properly. The severity of Ami's breathing crisis became clear when doctors discovered that her oxygen levels had dropped to dangerously low levels, forcing them to put her on a breathing tube and place her in a medically induced coma so that her body could rest and her lungs could have the best possible chance to heal. Snowbird tearfully revealed that doctors planned to keep Ami unconscious for about 2 days, so her body can work as little as possible and her lungs can heal, highlighting just how critical her condition had become. This wasn't the first time that Ami had been rushed to the hospital with pneumonia-related complications, as she has developed a troubling pattern of respiratory infections that seemed to hit her harder than they would affect most people her age. Her son Bear provided updates during the crisis, explaining that while it's not the best news ever, it could be worse, and noting that doctors had to insert the breathing tube because she started getting worse. The repeated hospitalizations have raised concerns among fans and family members about whether Ami's lungs were permanently damaged by her intensive cancer treatments, leaving her more vulnerable to respiratory infections and breathing problems that could potentially become life-threatening without immediate medical attention. Fact 14. Garden and wilderness survival expert. Despite her quiet and reserved personality on camera, Ami Brown is actually the undisputed authority within the Brown family when it comes to gardening, growing food, and understanding plant medicine, skills that have proven absolutely crucial for their survival during decades of living in remote Alaskan wilderness, where grocery stores and medical facilities were hundreds of miles away. Her expertise in these areas goes far beyond simple hobby gardening and extends into the realm of serious survival knowledge that has literally kept her family fed and healthy in situations where most people would struggle to survive. Ami's gardening authority within the family is so well established that she has complete control over all decisions related to where vegetables should be planted, which crops will grow best in their harsh climate, when to harvest different plants, and how to preserve food for the long Alaskan winters when fresh produce becomes impossible to obtain. Her knowledge encompasses not just basic vegetable gardening, but also understanding soil conditions, managing growing seasons in extreme climates, and maximizing crop yields in challenging environments where one failed harvest could mean the difference between eating well and going hungry. Beyond simple food production, Ami has developed extensive knowledge of wild plants and their medicinal properties, allowing her to serve as the family's primary healthcare provider when they were living months at a time without access to doctors or pharmacies. This plant medicine expertise enabled her to treat everything from minor cuts and illnesses to more serious health problems, using only what could be found or grown in their immediate environment, making her knowledge literally life-saving for her family. Her gardening and plant knowledge also played a crucial role in establishing their various homesteads over the years, as Ami would assess each new location for its potential to support food production and identify which wild plants were available for both nutrition and medicine. When the family moved to their Washington property and began establishing their dream community called Browntown, Ami's expertise became even more important as she worked to create sustainable food systems that could support not just her immediate family, but potentially an entire community of people living off the grid. The practical application of Ami's knowledge was regularly featured on Alaskan Bush People, where viewers could see her working in gardens, teaching her children about different plants, and making decisions about food production that directly impacted the family's well-being. Fact 15. Inherited complex legal battles. When Billy Brown died in February 2021, Ami not only lost her husband of over 40 years, but also inherited a massive legal nightmare that included a $500,000 lawsuit over Billy's business dealings, making her final years far more complicated and stressful than anyone could have anticipated. The lawsuit was filed by Robert Mahan, Billy's former business partner, who claimed that Billy's estate and his company Alaskan Wilderness Family Productions owed him money from a 10-year investment arrangement that had never been properly resolved before Billy's unexpected death. The legal complications became even more challenging for Ami because Billy had died without signing a will, forcing her to petition the court to become the official representative of his estate before she could even begin addressing the financial claims against them. When Ami filed the necessary paperwork to take control of Billy's assets, all at the same time, while also trying to maintain her own health and run the family's ranch operations in Washington. The convergence of all these legal problems created an almost impossible situation for a woman who had already survived cancer and lost her life partner, demonstrating just how quickly a family's circumstances can spiral into chaos when multiple crises hit simultaneously.